Hey, this is Nick Millivoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarists podcast, where every week we're talking about one of the 100 guitar players we think you should know. This week we're talking actually about two guitar players.
And really kind of three. We're really going to talk about the whole band.
Well,
we got to include Richie in there. We got to include Richie. He's part of the band. I say
podcast is already going off.
Yeah, no. We're talking about all
Here's
three.
Here's what you're in for, guys.
A little bit. Judas Priest. The entire reason you got that tattoo.
That's right. But before we talk about Judas Priest, we want to remind you, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify. Find us anywhere you find podcasts. And wherever you are, rate us, review us, give us likes, subscribe, all that stuff, because you want to keep up with the pressing issues we're talking about every week. And when you have something to say, we want you to hit us up. 100, that's 100 guitarists at premierguitar.com, or you can text or leave us a voicemail at 319-423-9734. You know what? Somebody told me the other day when I posted this, they responded to me on Instagram, and I said, don't respond here, call the line. They said, I can't remember all those numbers. Come on.
Screenshot it.
Come on, screenshot
we have technology,
I'm going to say it slowly. 319-423-9734. Nobody will answer. You do not have to be afraid you're going to talk to somebody. Nobody's going to answer.
That's right. Anytime.
Just leave a voicemail. Tell us something so we can play it. We can put it on one of these buttons here and play it.
Worldwide. So today's episode is sponsored by EMG, and they have graciously given us a code. Save a little money when you buy your EMG products. So the code is EMG100, and you get 15% off at checkout. So EMG, since 1976, they've been made in California. Rob Turner invented active pickup technology. They offer low noise benefits consistent across any stage or studio.
They've been used by artists such as Metallica, David Gilmour, Prince, Steve Lukather, Living Colour, Zakk Wylde, Slayer, Les Claypool, and Judas Priest.
That's right. EMG's solderless wiring kit even comes with any new pickup and makes it easy to install yourself, unless you are soldering geniuses like Nick and I.
That's right. We are good.
You can still do it. And they also have great customer support for products. So if you head over to EMG, use the code EMG100, you get 15% off at checkout, and thanks to EMG for the support.
Okay, so let's talk about Judas Priest. Here's the thing. Today's episode is a little bit different than other episodes of the 100 Guitarist podcast. In previous episodes, I would say, I think it's safe to say at this point, what is this? Episode 21, right? So we're in the second 20% of this podcast.
Right.
So within the first 20% of this podcast, for everybody we've covered, one of us brought some expertise to the artist. And then in some cases, we filled out our expertise with a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're doing things a little bit differently because neither of us possess expertise on Judas Priest.
That's true. I had some inside sources that we both consulted for this, who probably should remain nameless. I think two in particular were big fans. One in particular was a very big fan that we talked to and was our guiding light. But we don't want to. I wouldn't want to mention his name because I don't feel like our views should be colored by his impression. Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
But they did.
Our views, we're maintaining unbiased journalistic views here at the 100 Guitarist podcast. Right. We're just simply, we looked for the information. Okay, what do people like about Judas Priest? We put Judas, both of us agreed to this. We weren't, there's no secret forces at play here. We said Judas Priest should be on this, but neither of us are experts here. But we both know how important they are. We both know how iconic they are. We both know what classic rock radio sounds like, so we've heard those songs.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing I noticed about Judas Priest and consulting with the people in my life who are much bigger fans. I would say it's not uncommon for a band with this kind of legacy for fans to really, really like the early era of said band and view it above all the rest of the eras. For example,
In general.
Van Halen. Yeah, right? A lot of people like the Dave Lee Roth records. Maybe they like Sammy less.
Totally.
You know,
Black
a bunch
Sabbath.
of Black Sabbath, right. This was an interesting band because it seemed like the middle period was what everybody gravitated toward. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know
their
that.
first album, Rocka Rolla, came out in 74, which I think is just getting a 50th anniversary reissue, right? They put out 5 records. Rocka Rolla, Sad Wings of Destiny, Sin After Sin, Stained Class, Killing Machine. Then British Steel comes along, which was really the first record that I knew of
Same.
of Judas Priest, right? Because it had one of the all-time, and I will say this without a doubt, one of the all-time great album covers.
Oh, yeah.
The hand with the
Totally
razor
iconic.
on it, you know, has the hits Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law. That's where I feel like they really broke through commercially, right? And then it seemed like, so that 80s period, let's say from British Steel through Turbo, Ram It Down. Probably Turbo, though. That, it seems to me like the real hardcore fans, that's the era that they really gravitate towards.
Totally.
Right? So what I did is I kind of looked at this in like 3 parts. One, I hit the 80s period, which I would also slide in Unleashed in the East. That came out in 79. I'd
Sure.
also slide that a little bit in there. I would say Unleashed in the East, out of my discovery, was the one I was into the most.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because I just the KK and Glenn's guitar tones on that were incredible, you know. And you got to think late 70s recording technology was what it was. It was probably incredibly expensive to record a live record, and I think that after listening to it now, I think that might be one of the more underrated live records I've heard.
It's really good. I really enjoyed it. I think for me, yeah, I don't know. I really liked it. I kind of liked, okay, so listening now in 2024, I'm listening on Apple Music, as I imagine you are. You know, a lot of the records have, like, first disc is the album, and then second disc is a bunch of live tracks, live stuff. So I listened to Unleashed in the East, and I was like, at first I was like, this is it. But then listening to these albums, I also started hearing all those live tracks, and I kind of couldn't separate, like, they're just awesome live. For me, probably a big highlight for me where I listened and was like, yes, I get it. I totally get this now, was the video of them playing the US Festival in 1983.
Yes. And you sent that
you
over
that,
to
right?
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I'm all about, I want to buy into the story. So it's like, I see this wall of Marshalls behind them. I see a wall of cabinets. I don't care what's happening. I don't care what's actually happening. I don't care what are dummy cabinets and what are real.
Doesn't matter.
To me, every cabinet is on. I'm suspension of disbelief. I'm watching that like it's a movie. Like, okay, there's cabinets there. They're all on. They're all like just blowing wind out of the speakers, you know? And so I see that, and that's what it sounds like to me. That's easy to believe. Like, that specific video, it just looks loud. It feels loud. It feels so heavy. And I think that there's so much of Judas Priest's personality in the visual thing. Like, so Unleashed in the East, I listen to it and I love it. But watching the spectacle of it, to me, is like, that was an important thing for me to like really take in. Just like the cabinets, I mean, just the drums the whole time that they're playing. Every time they do like a close up on the drums, every cymbal's just like moving the whole time. Like, everything is just vibrating. And I'm gonna say it wasn't windy. I'm gonna say it was just from
it could
volume.
fall apart at any moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Rob Halford is just unbelievable. And KK Downing and Glenn Tipton are like, they're just like such showmen. That sold it for me, and then made every album that I listened to after that, like, it's special, more special than they were before.
After seeing that, like, it kind of dawned on me that literally this is like the prototypical metal band when I think of
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Like twin ripping guitar players, right? Cats dressed in leather. They're not playing ballads. They're full on the whole time. A screaming lead singer, an out of control drummer, you know, incredible riffs, you know, drum solos, ripping double harmony leads. Like, if you make a checklist of here's what you need to be an 80s metal band, check, 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 check. They have all the elements, right? So, other than the live record, when you started digging, because it seems like there's a reason why they seem to hit more in the early to mid 80s than in the 70s. Because it seemed like their style kind of took a bit harder turn when it got around to British Steel.
It took a harder turn, and it also, like, their songwriting. Okay, so Rocka Rolla, 1974. And if you watch videos, the Old Grey Whistle Test, where they play some of that stuff, you know, they look like hippies. But it's like dark and bluesy vibe. It's kind of like there's some sort of like Sabbath-y heaviness. They don't sound like Sabbath, but there's something there with like the dark thing that's bluesy. But like, okay, the first track, One for the Road, that's like a slow, dark blues song in 5/4.
Yeah.
Like it's just so, that couldn't be more different than like Living After Midnight. And I think that it's like they get heavier and that's the story, but they also just like master songwriting. By British Steel, those songs are so good. And it's not just like, it's one thing to say like those songs are so good, but the you know, there's so much to the riffs. There's so much to the way that the band is streamlined, like rhythmically streamlined. They're just like tight and focused. Like if One for the Road is like, that's in 5/4 and it's sort of this like loose jammy thing. Living After Midnight, Breaking the Law, those are tight songs, right? Rhythmically tight songs. But there's also this thing. I've always thought that Judas Priest was funny, right? Like there's this funny thing that they're dark, they're dark and scary or something, but they're also like, it's in a way that is funny. Like not quite as far as the Misfits. I love the Misfits, but like there's, Halford's Look but Hellbent for Leather, I think is like the first indication to me in their discography where it's like, all right, that's a funny title. Like, okay.
Well, and that's where I guess that's where that kind of those stage clothes kind of came about.
Yeah.
It's like, part of that tour.
It's so funny. And then British Steel, like Living After Midnight is a funny song. Like, because it's so catchy. And then Breaking the Law is like also, for me, Breaking the Law is Beavis and Butthead.
100%. Like, probably the first time I really had some kind of music by Judas Priest stuck with me is hearing Beavis and Butthead sing a riff to Breaking the Law.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I learned how that riff goes, was hearing them sing it on MTV along with the video.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's like, I think that there's like stuff where Beavis is saying it, but they're not like listening to the video. And then like, I think I knew that first before I even knew it was a song, and like heard the song. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I was like, Breaking the Law,
And hearing the version of Breaking the Law on that US Festival, that's a ripping version, man.
Crushing.
And I dig their Fleetwood Mac cover, the Green Monalishi. They played that throughout their career. I think that's one of their...
You know what? I didn't even catch that.
Oh,
all right.
It's really good. It's on Hellbent for Leather.
Yeah.
Or Killing Machine, whatever you want to call it.
Killing Machine, which was renamed for U.S. audiences to Hellbent for Leather.
Yeah,
They're like, this title's too dark. Okay, here's a title that's not dark. This is a pretty funny name.
This is what it says about that. It was feared that the murderous implications of the original title would be too much for the larger record retailers to want to put the LP on its racks. Sorry. So yeah.
Well, that wasn't a problem with Hellbent for Leather.
No, wasn't a problem. Hellbent for Leather. There we go.
So what album? Okay, so British Steel is awesome. But I wouldn't say that's my favorite Judas Priest album. What album's your favorite? Did you gravitate towards any one album?
I like Hellbent for Leather. I think it's probably for me the studio records between Hellbent for Leather and Screaming for Vengeance.
For me, it's Screaming for Vengeance.
Yeah, because you have Electric Eye, you have Another Thing Coming.
Yeah, it's so good. Electric Eye is amazing. You've got Another Thing Coming is amazing. I really liked Riding on the Wind. When KK and Glenn are trading solo, there's like solo breaks. It's awesome. Their guitars are just like screaming. It's amazing. Take These Chains is kind of like the ballad thing, but it's like, it's not a ballad because it's so heavy. Melodically, I was thinking of it kind of as ballad. And then they have these like cool guitarmony fills that like, every time they play guitarmony lines, I think that's the coolest.
I am not still well versed enough in their catalog to be able to tell the difference between Glenn and KK.
I'm not either, and I'm okay with that. In this case, in so many cases, I want to like, this player sounds like this player sounds like this. So like for Slayer, for example, the difference between Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman is like noticeable. They have different vocabularies and they serve different purposes. I don't think of KK and Glenn as serving different purposes. They're serving together in a guitarmy, you know? They're a two-person guitar army. And I think that's like that was the thing for me. That was the hook for me, like feeling like I really got their playing is like they play so many riffs in unison that are like eighth note riffs, just like together.
Yeah.
And then they'll like end a riff or they'll do a fill or a pre-chorus with that harmony line. And it's like they're going down the road and then they split off and then they come back. And like that, I think is like, they're just so locked into each other. And that's like a key to Judas Priest's guitar sound. Can we talk about, did you spend much time with Turbo?
A little bit. I was pointed away from that by.
Interesting. Okay. I could see why, because it does deviate from the sound. For me, I like the cover of Turbo. So,
no. It's just not.
It sounds like ZZ Top.
I mean, it's super 80s. The cover. I'm looking at the cover.
It sounds like 80s ZZ Top, right? Like Turbo Lover from the get-go, first track, Turbo Lover, that drum sound. I'm just like, all right, they're doing Eliminator. Private Property sounds like Sharp Dressed Man. But then with like these huge other things going on, these huge other riffs. But the main riff that starts it sounds like Sharp Dressed Man. But I really loved the production on Turbo.
I did see here. It lists who, this is interesting. They put lead guitar credits on who plays the solo on Turbo.
I don't know that I want to know that.
Ooh. Some of these songs, only one of them solo.
Okay.
Interesting. I wish more bands did that because their styles are so similar.
Yeah.
You know that, and I think that's why it works. You know, if they were radically different, I don't think it meshes well.
So, speaking of guitar solos, Painkiller. Can we talk about Painkiller?
Yes. Now this to me was an outlier. Like I felt like I was falling in line with my sources that middle era was kind of where I would gravitate toward.
Mm-hmm.
But this Painkiller record was kind of the outlier for me. This was the one, especially the title track. You know.
Oh yeah, title track rips. I had to go when I heard it. I was like, no way, it sounds like this live. And watch some live videos, and it sounds like that live. Yeah.
I mean, the solo on Painkiller, the guitar solo on Painkiller might be my favorite solo on it. Let me see if it lists as it lists. And the drum intro. The drum intro alone.
Oh yeah.
What kind of record starts with a drum solo like that? I mean, come on, right? And that is Glenn Tipton playing the solo on Painkiller. So spoiler.
Here's the thing about Painkiller, though, and I feel like the reason I gravitated away from, like, I loved it. I loved Painkiller for shock value. I didn't know that Judas Priest sounded like that ever. Like before this, you know, knowing the hits and stuff, I didn't know that Judas Priest got into that like speed metal kind of zone. and I loved listening to it. But then at the end, it's like, what did I remember? I remembered the sound of the album and the vibe of the album, but I didn't remember the songs the way that I remembered the other songs. Like it doesn't have the pop songs that the other albums have.
Yeah. And this was also, right before, it's kind of the end of their glory, peak golden era, I guess you could say, because then, you think maybe this is just on my mind because I just watched that documentary on the Sunset Strip. But so this came out in 90, right? Right after this was grunge. I don't know if that had anything to do with the fact that it took them 7 years to make another record after this.
But also,
they broke
Halford
up
left
for a
the
little
band.
bit. Yeah, they broke up for a little bit, I guess. That also probably contributed. But yeah, this I would lump this in as the end of their kind of golden era, They got a new drummer, Scott Travis from Racer X, and I think that really kind of kicked them in the butt on this one.
Yeah.
And I like that they're not afraid to have like 6, 7, 8 minute songs.
No. Oh, yeah.
That I really like too.
So I got a question for you. Here we are. We're in the I feel like that is the end of like this prime period. We're talking at the top of the episode. I'm saying it's all about KK and Glenn. Richie Faulkner joins the band in 2011, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. I admittedly did not spend much time in that period.
I dabbled.
Okay.
What's
he bringing to the band? What's different?
Well, this might not sound great. I think he does exactly what he needs to do. I don't think he is like Richie is, and maybe this is why they picked him. Like he's a guy that can step in and can really, hold down that chair. Because like the whole reason KK worked so well was because him and Glenn Stiles, I think, were so complementary, similar, however you want to put it. I think Richie is kind of right in that fold. He's not too out of left field stylistically. Obviously, he's younger than the rest of the cats, but he's not too. So that way, when he plays these leads along with Glenn, it just works. Like he doesn't stand out too much, I guess is the way I'm kind of ham-fistedly saying. He doesn't stand out too much.
Yeah, he knows the gig. He knows what he's supposed to do.
Right?
So, but here's the question. If he's not joining until 2011, is there an album where it's like, this is a great Judas Priest guitar album that's happened since 2011?
I think much like AC/DC, Judas Priest has made the same album a number of times.
Okay,
that's
I can get with that. Fair.
And I think these latest 3 records that Richie's been on, Redeemer of Souls, Firepower, and Invincible Shield, all kind of fall in that line. They all sound like Judas Priest, And that's what. Now they haven't had any kind of real commercial breakthrough hits like Another Thing Coming or whatever, but neither has AC/DC,
Right.
And they're still cranking out straight ahead heavy metal records. They did put an instrumental on this, I believe, this latest record, one of these recent ones I caught, and they had it was on Firepower, a track called Guardians.
Okay,
it's only a minute long. It's only a minute long, but an instrumental Judas Priest track.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's longer than a minute I would find of interest.
No, I dug it. Okay, so our 100 guitarists list. It's yet to be determined how long it actually is. I'm gonna guess that our list is actually going to be about 116 people long, because we're doing entries where we just pick a band as one of our 100, but that actually has multiple guitar players. So are we putting Judas Priest on the list with 2 entries, KK Downing and Glenn Tipton, or 3 and including Richie Faulkner? I have my own thought about this. I want to hear what your thought is.
I would say 2, because I think Richie has been a wonderful steward of the stage right guitarist, I'm assuming, but I don't feel like they have really done much groundbreaking material with Richie in the band. Now, if a year after we drop this episode and they hit, they have a massive TikTok hit with some metal riff that they wrote, which I think would be amazing.
Which would rule.
That would be great. Yeah, I don't know. You could see it, but I mean, I think when people think of Judas Priest, they think of Glenn and KK.
Yeah.
And
that's what you picture.
That's what you picture. And that's what I think.
I mean, honestly, when people think of Judas Priest, I think they picture Rob Halford.
Sure. But in guitar circles,
yeah,
it's Glenn and KK. And, it's funny. I think, and I think they have, Judas Priest did not invent heavy metal. But dang, they codified it in such a way in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
That
new wave of British heavy metal stuff, it's like...
That's them.
It's important, and it's them.
I mean, it's them, And I always thought there were interesting parallels between Judas Priest and Iron Maiden.
Yes.
On paper, rambunctious lead singer who has huge voice, 2 shreddy guitar players, or sometimes 3 is Iron Maiden. Shreddy guitar players that do some harmony stuff, lots of amazing riffs, very creative album artwork. And Iron Maiden is, huge compared to Judas Priest.
I would say that for me, the thing that differentiates those two bands the most is when I think of Iron Maiden, I think of I think of a galloping thing and this soaring vocal thing and soaring guitar things. And when I think of Judas Priest, and so it's like with Iron Maiden, there's like, I don't know. Yeah, different imagery involved. I imagine.
To me, Iron Maiden is like more of a gallop, whereas Judas Priest more of a
straight eighths. It's motorcycle music to me. It's like I don't ride a motorcycle, but it makes me want to ride a motorcycle. But like not even in real life, like in a video game or like in an '80s movie universe. That's like what Judas Priest makes me feel like when I hear the because it's like it's more. Both bands are fun, but in really different ways.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to point out 2 other things in the lore of Judas Priest that people should go check out. One, Heavy Metal Parking Lot.
Oh, man.
It's on YouTube. It's
iconic.
It's iconic. It's filmed at a Judas Priest Dawkins show in D.C. or somewhere. And... just a bunch of knucklehead kids and getting ready to go see some Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. The other thing is the movie Rockstar with Marky Mark Wahlberg, which is, they say loosely, who knows, but basically based on Halford was out of the band. The other guys in the band heard this kid sing, Tim Ripper Owens, nicknamed after the Judas Priest song, ends up bringing him into the band. He was in the band for a while until Halford came back. So they made kind of a fictionalized movie version of it. It's kind of like School of Rock for adults. It's pretty funny. You see Zakk Wylde in it. You see Miles Kennedy in it. Jason Bonham's in it. Nick Cantonese plays guitar in it. It's pretty. Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind is in it. Michael Starr from Steel Panther is in it. It's a pretty entertaining. Even if it's probably not fully how everything went down, it's a pretty entertaining movie. So I would definitely check those out.
I haven't seen that. I got to check that out.
Gotta check it out.
While we're speaking of movies, I have no idea what the actual answer is for this. Probably easily found, but just feeling wise, going on feel. I'm not interested in the facts here. How much of Judas Priest is in Spinal Tap, you think, aesthetically?
Oh, I think a good amount.
I think it's a lot.
I think it's a good amount.
There is a lot of Spinal Tap
Rob Reiner
vibe.
has said he went to see Judas Priest in concert to prepare
Oh, there you go.
To
There's
make
the fact.
to make that film. That would
The
be an
double
interesting
lead
question.
guitar guys, that feels like the two bands. I couldn't help but think about that. And then it's like the metal imagery and the change in style,
I feel like it was more.
Judas Priest didn't ever write a song that sounded like "Give Me Some Money," but
No. I think it was
or
more earlier
Flower
Priest
Children.
probably influenced the look in a way.
Uh-huh.
Because the Spinal Tap guys weren't like totally decked out in leather and studs the whole time.
Derek
you know
Smalls
what I mean?
was though.
Well, Derek Smalls was, yeah. I'm really interested in seeing Spinal Tap too.
Yeah.
Let's get that
Very
rolling.
stoked.
But yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. I don't see as much with Halford, I guess, which visually could be the defining visual part of Judas Priest is Halford. I don't see as as much. Like you said, when people think of Judas Priest, they think of Halford.
Yeah. But the two guitar thing and just like the trajectory of the band, changing styles and stuff. Not that they're the only band that does that, but there's something there for sure.
Right on.
So, all right.
Did we do it? We did it.
We are new Judas Priest fans. I'm totally
right.
this isn't my Judas Priest deep dive doesn't stop today now that we recorded this.
No.
I got to keep listening to Screaming for Vengeance.
One of the
100 more times.
very fun things I do while we're doing this podcast is whatever band we happen to be, or guitarist we happen to be listening to at the time, I will play it for my daughter when I take her to school in the morning. And last week, it's Screaming for Vengeance, honey. Here we go. She's 12. Let's go. And she's like, ooh. And I just love to hear, what do you think? I asked her, I was like, what would you call this music?
Uh-huh.
What did she say? She called it heavy rock. She called it, I was like, that's what we'll call it. Heavy rock.
Could she get into it?
No. She's a real Broadway pop girl right now. Although
There's
she does
a little bit of
Street
Broadway
Dive.
in here, though.
But listen, visually, yeah, maybe. But
not listening.
Not listening to it, no. So, but she's always my litmus test. Like, what do you think of this? And I just
What
love
has
hearing
she
it.
liked the most so far? Do you have data yet?
I mean, her name's Layla, so she definitely likes Clapton, but we haven't covered him yet. But no, she likes Lake Street Dive. She likes Ben Rector.
I mean, of artists we've covered.
Oh, none. None. I don't think there's a single one where she's like, yeah, Dad, let's play more of that.
We want Layla to report back.
I mean, I would say she's heard quite a bit of Oasis lately. I would say, honestly, Oasis or Stones would be the ones she doesn't. Let's be honest, Jerry Garcia. Oasis, Stones, and Garcia are the ones she's been, subject to lately. So,
do your children know how to play Wonderwall?
Layla's going to start taking guitar lessons real soon. So, yes, she will.
Nice.
So, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again to EMG for
and don't forget that promo
the
code.
show. EMG100 for 15% off at checkout. All the links and information will be below in the didgeridoo down there in the description.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, all of that stuff you can do anywhere you get podcasts. And then give us a holler by getting at us at 100 guitarists at premierguitar.com and hit us by phone at 319-423-9734.
There we go. All right. We'll see y'all next week.
See you next time.